Serena Williams. No, not the world-famous tennis champion. This Serena Williams was a different kind of powerhouse. Born and raised in a tough neighborhood on the south side of Chicago, Serena knew what it meant to be underestimated. She knew what it felt like to walk into a room and have people assume she didn't belong. She grew up hearing whispers behind her back. She's not good enough. She's just another poor black girl. But Serena never listened to the noise. She fought. She climbed. She built an empire, brick by brick, fueled by the very doubts that others tried to place upon her shoulders. By the time she turned 35, Serena owned a multi-million-dollar real estate and finance company. She had properties all over the country, and recently, she had made the biggest purchase of her life, a regional bank that had been struggling for years under bad management. Serena believed in second chances, for herself, for others, for businesses forgotten by the world. She had a plan to revive the bank, help the community, and create opportunities for people who looked like her. People who had been ignored, dismissed, and overlooked. But first, Serena wanted to see, truly see, the culture inside the bank she had just bought. She didn't want numbers on a spreadsheet. She wanted the truth. So she came up with an idea. A simple, yet powerful test. She would walk into the bank, not as a CEO, not in her custom-tailored suits or her red-bottom heels, not with her entourage or personal assistant in tow. No, she would go in wearing old jeans, a faded hoodie, worn-out sneakers, hair pulled back into a messy bun, no makeup, no jewelry. To the world, she would look like just another struggling woman, maybe even homeless. Someone no one important would bother to treat with kindness, because Serena knew the way people treat those they think have nothing reveals everything about who they truly are. It was a crisp Thursday morning when she put on the disguise. Looking at herself in the mirror, Serena smiled. Not because she enjoyed the deception, but because she was excited. Excited to peel back the glossy veneer and see the real soul of the institution she now owned. As she approached the bank, Serena felt the cool wind nip at her cheeks. She pulled her hoodie tighter around her face, blending into the city crowd. The building loomed ahead, polished glass doors, marble floors shining inside, well-dressed customers stepping out of luxury cars. This was a place that prided itself on appearances, on status, on power. And yet, Serena, in her tattered clothes, carried more wealth in her bank account than probably every single customer inside. Funny how the world worked. Funny how appearances could lie. Taking a deep breath, Serena pushed open the door. Immediately she felt it. The stares, the subtle glances, the tightening of handbags, the sideways looks of suspicion. A security guard near the entrance stiffened, his hand moving instinctively toward his belt. Behind the gleaming counters, a few tellers exchanged uneasy looks. One whispered something under her breath, and they both laughed. Serena kept walking, calm and unbothered. She wasn't here to start trouble. She was here to observe. At the center of the lobby stood a long mahogany desk. Behind it, scrolling on his phone with an air of boredom, was a man wearing a navy blue suit and a smug expression. His name tag read, Jason, Senior Banker. Serena approached the desk quietly. Jason didn't even look up at first. When he finally did, his eyes swept over her appearance with open disdain. His mouth twisted into a smirk without even bothering. To hide his annoyance, he said, "Can I help you?" The words dripped with sarcasm. Serena smiled politely. "Yes," she said. "I'm looking to open a small business account. Maybe inquire about a loan." Jason's eyes widened, then narrowed. He chuckled under his breath. A short, cruel sound. "And you think you can get a business loan from us?" he said, loud enough for nearby customers to hear. A few heads turned. Serena felt the heat of their gazes. Judgment, dismissal, amusement. But she didn't flinch. She didn't blink. She simply nodded. "Yes. I'd like to know the options available. Jason leaned back in his chair, studying her like she was some kind of joke. He whispered something under his breath again, this time with a sneer, and then he stood up, slowly, deliberately. He walked around the desk until he was standing right in front of Serena, too close, invading her space. "You don't belong here," he said quietly, voice thick with disdain. "This isn't a shelter. This isn't a handout center. You people," he sneered the words, "need to stop wasting our time." Serena's hands clenched at her sides, not from fear, not from anger, but from sheer willpower to stay silent, to let the scene unfold, to collect the evidence she needed. Because this was exactly what she had suspected. And soon, Jason would regret every single word he had just said. Jason folded his arms across his chest, staring down at Serena as if she were something stuck to the bottom of his shoe. His voice dropped lower, colder. "You should leave. Now. Before I call security." Serena remained still, her eyes calm, her breathing steady. She had faced bigger men, bigger threats, bigger storms. But the room was electric. Other customers were pretending not to look, but they were looking. Phones subtly raised. Murmurs passing like ripples through the marble hall. Jason leaned closer, a thin, fake smile stretching across his face. "I don't know what scam you're trying to pull," he hissed. "But it won't work here. Not today." Serena tilted her head slightly. "And what exactly do you think I'm trying to pull?" she asked, her voice a soft, steady hum in the heavy air. Jason laughed loud and cruel. "Maybe you thought you could fake some sob story, get a pity loan, or maybe you thought if you caused enough drama, we'd pay you just to leave. Isn't that what you people do?" The words hit the air like a slap. Serena felt them, the heavy, ugly weight of them. But she refused to give him the satisfaction of seeing her flinch. Instead, she smiled. A tiny, secretive smile. One Jason didn't understand. Not yet. Behind her, the security guard finally moved, approaching with slow, measured steps. He placed a hand on Serena's shoulder. Too rough, too aggressive. "Miss, I'm going to have to ask you to exit the premises," he said. Serena turned to him, polite as ever. "I haven't broken any laws," she said. "I simply asked about opening an account," Jason snorted. "You broke the law the moment you walked in here dressed like that." The crowd gasped. Even the security guard shifted uncomfortably. But Jason didn't care. He was on a roll. He loved the feeling of control, of dominance, and that's when it happened. In one swift, ugly movement, fueled by arrogance and entitlement, Jason slapped Serena across the face, hard. The sound cracked through the lobby like a gunshot. Gasps filled the air. Phones clattered. To the ground. Someone screamed. Serena staggered back, hand flying to her cheek. It wasn't the pain that shocked her. She had known worse. It was the sheer audacity. The absolute certainty Jason had that there would be no consequences. He thought she was powerless. He thought she was nobody. Jason turned to the security guard, barking orders. "Call the police. Tell them we have a disturbance. Get her out of—" "Here now." The guard hesitated, clearly rattled, but eventually lifted his radio. Serena stood silently, head high, heart pounding, not from fear, from fury, from the slow, burning fire of justice preparing to ignite. Minutes later, 2 uniformed police officers entered the building. They took one look at Serena, then at Jason, then back at Serena. Their eyes widened, recognition flickered, but they said nothing. Not yet. Jason puffed out his chest and pointed dramatically. "That's her. Arrest her for trespassing. She's causing a scene." One of the officers stepped forward cautiously. "Ma'am, may I see some ID?" Serena reached into her pocket slowly, deliberately, and handed it over. The officer's eyes scanned the ID and instantly stiffened. His mouth opened slightly, then shut. He leaned over to his partner, whispering urgently. Jason noticed. And he didn't like it. "What's the holdup?" he barked. "She's a trespasser! She assaulted me!" The officers looked at each other. Then at Serena. Then back at Jason. Finally, one officer spoke, voice firm and professional. "Sir, we need you to step aside." Jason's jaw dropped. "What? No! She's the criminal! She's—" "Sir," the officer repeated, sharper this time, "step aside." Jason, red-faced and spluttering, stumbled backward. The officers turned to Serena. Their demeanor changed completely, respectful, almost apologetic. One officer extended her ID back to her with a nod. "You're free to go, Mom," he said quietly. "Apologies for the misunderstanding." Serena smiled, a slow, deliberate smile that made Jason's skin crawl. "No need to apologize," she said softly. "I'll be back soon enough." And with that, she turned and walked out the grand glass doors, leaving a stunned, silent lobby in her wake. Jason watched her go, confusion and rage battling on his face. He had no idea, no clue, that he had just slapped the new owner of the very bank he worked for. But tomorrow, he would find out. And it would be a day he would never forget. The next morning, the air around the bank felt different. Heavier, tense, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Jason, oblivious as ever, swaggered into work, sunglasses perched on his nose, a smug grin plastered across his face. He had spent the night bragging to his friends about how he had handled a situation at the bank. People like that, he had said proudly, need to learn their place. He thought he was untouchable, unbreakable. He thought he was a king in his tiny little kingdom, but kings fall. And Jason's fall was coming, fast, hard, public. Around 9 a.m., the front doors of the bank swung open, not with the timid creak of a customer uncertain if they belonged, but with the commanding boom of someone who owned every inch of the marble. Floors beneath them, heads turned instantly. Every eye in the lobby snapped toward the entrance. And there she was, Serena Williams. But not the woman they had seen yesterday. No torn jeans, no faded hoodie, no worn sneakers. Today, Serena wore a custom-tailored navy suit that whispered wealth and authority with every crisp line. Diamond earrings glinted under the chandeliers. Her makeup was flawless. Her hair flowed in perfect waves down her shoulders. She didn't just walk into the bank. She owned the space the moment she stepped through the door. Behind her marched a small team, sharp-dressed lawyers, assistants, and media personnel, cameras already rolling. The entire bank froze. The tellers at the counters stopped mid-transaction. The security guards straightened, exchanging panicked looks. Jason stood rooted to the spot, confused. His mind struggled to connect the woman standing before him with the one he had slapped just hours before. It couldn't be. It couldn't be. But deep down, in the cold pit of his stomach, Jason knew. He knew exactly who she was. And he knew he was in trouble. Serena's heels clicked across the marble floor with slow, deliberate power. Every step was a declaration. I am not here to be ignored. I am not here to be disrespected. I am here for justice. She stopped right in front of Jason's desk. This time, she was the one towering over him. She smiled, a smile that could cut glass. Jason opened his mouth, desperate to say something, anything, but no words came out. Just a pathetic squeaking noise like air escaping a balloon. Serena tilted her head, pretending to study his name tag. "Jason, is it?" she said sweetly. Jason nodded, throat dry, palms sweating. "Jason," Serena continued, her voice ringing out. "Clearly so everyone could hear. I believe you had some strong opinions yesterday. About who belongs here, Jason stammered. I didn't know. You're right, Serena cut in smoothly. You didn't know, but you chose to judge anyway. You chose to humiliate. You chose violence. Jason's face drained of color. By now, the lobby was packed. Employees lined the walls. Customers froze in place. Phones discreetly filming. History being made. Serena turned slightly, gesturing to the cameras behind her. For those wondering, she announced, her voice calm but commanding. My name is Serena Williams, and as of yesterday afternoon, I officially own this bank. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Some employees visibly sagged against the walls. A few gasps, a few whispered, "Oh my God," echoed around the lobby. Serena turned back to Jason, her eyes hard as steel. "And Jason," she said, her voice dropping lower, more lethal, "you are hereby terminated, effective immediately." Jason's mouth flapped open and closed, like a fish gasping for air. He stumbled backward, crashing into the mahogany desk he had once lorded over. But, he sputtered. "You can't just—" "I can," Serena said, her smile widening. "I did." Two uniformed security officers, now clearly understanding who really held the power, approached Jason. They didn't hesitate. They flanked him on either side, ready to escort him out. Jason turned, pleading now. Please, Ms. Williams." "It was a mistake. I didn't know. Please." Serena leaned in slightly, her voice a whisper of silk and steel. "You didn't need to know who I was, Jason. You just needed to treat me like a human being." Jason dropped his head, defeated. The security guards took him gently but firmly by the arms and led him away. As the heavy doors swung shut behind him, the bank lobby exploded into a frenzy of whispers and recording phones. Serena straightened her jacket. She turned back to the stunned crowd. Her eyes scanned every face, the fearful, the ashamed, the hopeful, and with a slight smile she said, "This isn't just about me. This is about changing the culture of this institution. From this day forward, we judge no one by their clothes, their skin, or their bank balance." The bank employees stood motionless, absorbing every word. Some were blinking back tears. Others straightened their backs, feeling a strange sense of hope blooming where there had once been only fear. Today wasn't just about firing Jason. It was about something bigger, something powerful, something unstoppable, and Serena Williams was just getting started. The heavy silence hung in the air long after Jason was escorted out of the building. It wasn't just awkward. It was seismic. It was the kind of silence that comes before a storm or a revolution. Serena stood at the center of it all, a pillar of strength and authority. She took a slow breath, giving everyone in the lobby time to fully grasp the reality of the moment. She wasn't just another angry customer. She wasn't someone they could brush off or mock behind closed doors. She was the boss. She was the owner. And today, she was about to change everything. Serena scanned the room, her sharp eyes catching every nervous twitch, every guilty glance, every hopeful face. Then she spoke, her voice clear, confident, and commanding. "Today this bank becomes something different. Something better, not because we have no choice, but because we must." She paused, letting the words settle. The cameras from her team continued rolling, capturing every second. This wasn't just a moment. This was history. Serena raised her hand and gestured to her assistant, Marcus, a tall, sharp-dressed man with a tablet in hand. Marcus stepped forward, nodding. "We conducted a full review of this branch's customer service records, employee evaluations, and internal complaints," Serena said. "Some of you have built reputations. Reputations you should be proud of. Others, well," her eyes hardened slightly, "others have been hiding behind uniforms and titles while treating customers with disdain." A ripple of anxiety moved through the room. Some employees shifted uncomfortably. Others stood straighter, as if daring her to judge them. Marcus tapped on his tablet. Names appeared on the screen in front of him. Serena continued. Those of you who have complaints of discrimination, harassment, or misconduct filed against you, step forward. No one moved. Serena raised an eyebrow. Shall I call your names? Still, no one moved. She nodded to Marcus, who began reading. Travis Green. Silence. Olivia Hensley. A nervous cough. Ben Carter. Slowly, hesitantly, 3 employees shuffled forward, heads down, faces flushed, ashamed. Serena looked at them, not with rage, but with cold, professional disappointment. You are suspended effective immediately, she said, her voice low but firm. There will be a full investigation. Pending the outcome, further action will be taken. The 3 employees mumbled weak apologies and moved to the side, escorted gently by another security officer. Serena turned back to the rest of the group. And now, she said, her tone lifting slightly, I want to speak to another group of people. Her eyes softened just a little. The tension shifted in the room. Not everyone was guilty. Not everyone had failed. I want to speak to those who showed kindness, Serena said. Those who treated every customer, every human being, with dignity, no matter what they wore, what they drove, or what they looked like. She smiled genuinely now, a warm, bright smile that filled the room with light. I know who you are. I saw you yesterday. I watched the security footage. I listened to the stories. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the employees. Serena continued. There was one woman who noticed I was being mistreated. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't cause a scene. But she treated me like a human being. Serena turned to the side and pointed to a young woman standing nervously near the back. A bank teller with curly hair and wide, earnest eyes. Her name tag read, Emily. Emily gasped quietly, a hand flying to her chest. Emily, Serena said, smiling warmly, you didn't know who I was. You didn't know there were cameras. You didn't do it for show. You did it because it was the right thing to do. The whole room turned to look at Emily, who was now blinking back. Tears. Serena took a step closer, lowering her voice just a little, so it felt more personal, more powerful. And that's the kind of person I want leading this branch. The room erupted in gasps, shock, joy, disbelief. Emily shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. Me? She stammered. I'm just a teller. Not anymore, Serena said, laughing softly. Congratulations, Emily. You are the new assistant. Branch manager, effective immediately. Thunderous applause broke out. Customers clapped, employees cheered. The entire energy of the bank shifted, from fear to hope. Serena waited for the applause to die down, then addressed everyone again. This isn't just about promotions and punishments, she said. This is about building something that lasts. A place where people are seen, respected, valued. She paused, her eyes glistening just slightly, but her voice never wavered. If you're willing to be part of that future, then welcome. If not, there's the door. No one moved. Everyone wanted to stay. Because for the first time in a long, long time, this place didn't feel like just a bank. It felt like a revolution, and Serena Williams was leading it. The lobby gradually emptied out. Customers left, still whispering and smiling about what they had witnessed. Employees returned to their stations, buzzing with excitement, hope, and nervous energy. But Serena wasn't done. Not yet. She asked the branch manager, now newly promoted Emily, to gather the entire staff for a special meeting in the conference room. Every employee, from the highest senior banker to the newest intern. No one was exempt. When the clock struck 11 a.m., they all filed into the large glass-walled conference room. The air was thick with anticipation. No one knew exactly what to expect. Serena stood at the head of the long oak table, confident but relaxed. No notes, no script, just her, raw, real, and ready to speak from the heart. She looked around the room, making eye contact with as many faces as she could. Some eyes were wide with admiration. Others were clouded with guilt. Most were simply curious. Then she began. Her voice was low and steady, but filled with emotion. "I wasn't born into wealth," she said. "I wasn't born into opportunity. I was born into a world that told me over and over again that I wasn't enough." She paused, letting the words sink in. "I grew up in a small, crumbling apartment with a leaky roof and cracked windows. My mother worked 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. There were days we ate cereal for dinner because it was all we had." Serena smiled slightly, not with sadness, but with pride. "But my mother, she never let me believe I was poor in spirit. She told me every single day, 'Your circumstances are not your destiny.' And I believed her." Around the room, employees leaned in, hanging on to every word. "I worked hard, harder than anyone around me. I studied by candlelight when the electricity was cut. I took buses across town to attend better schools. I wore the same shoes until the soles wore through." She let out a small laugh, shaking her head at the memories. "And even then, when I entered the world of business, when I built my first company, from scratch, I still walked into rooms where people looked at me and saw nothing." Her voice tightened, just slightly, a crack in the armor, but she pressed on. "They saw my skin before they saw my skills. They saw my gender before they heard my ideas. They saw my clothes before they understood my value." A hush fell over the room. No one dared move. No one dared even breathe too loudly. "And yesterday," Serena said, her voice steady again, "I walked into this bank, the bank I now own, and I was treated exactly like I had been treated all my life." She let the weight of those words sit in the silence. "But you know what?" she said, a spark lighting in her eyes. "I'm grateful for it, because it reminded me why I fight, why I build, why I lead." She looked directly at Emily, who was now quietly wiping a tear from the corner of her eye. "It's not about revenge," Serena said softly. "It's about making sure that no little girl who looks like me, no hard-working man who's down on his luck, no immigrant, no dreamer, no underdog, ever feels invisible again." She straightened her shoulders, her voice rising with quiet power. "This bank, starting today, will be different. It will be a place where everyone is treated with respect, dignity, and fairness. Where appearances mean nothing, and character means everything." A few employees nodded. Others wiped their eyes. The energy in the room had completely shifted, from fear and guilt to hope and inspiration. Serena smiled, a real wide smile that lit up the entire room. "And for those who believe in that mission," she said, "you will thrive here. You will lead here. You will help change the world, one customer, one handshake, one small act of kindness at a time." The room erupted into quiet applause. Not the polite, obligatory kind, but real, heartfelt applause. Serena let it wash over her, feeling the change in the air. This wasn't just about one bad employee. It was about building something that would last, something that would matter. And she wasn't alone anymore. Not anymore. Because today, Serena Williams had sparked a revolution, and the fire was only just beginning to spread. The meeting ended with a standing ovation. It wasn't mandatory. It wasn't out of fear. It was real. It was earned. Employees slowly trickled back to their desks, buzzing with renewed purpose. The ones who stayed because they believed. Because they wanted to be part of something bigger than paychecks and promotions. They wanted to be part of a movement. Serena remained in the conference room with her leadership team. She wasn't done reshaping the future. She was just getting started. She pulled out a thick folder from her briefcase and placed it on the table. "We're launching a new initiative," she announced. "Effective immediately." Her team leaned in, curious. They knew Serena didn't make moves without meaning. Every step had a purpose. "We're going to open our hiring practices," she said. "We're going into communities that have been ignored. Neighborhoods where resumes get tossed out without a second glance." Marcus, her assistant, nodded, already scribbling notes. Serena continued, her voice firm. "I want partnerships with local community centers, nonprofits, shelters, vocational schools. I want to find people with drive, heart, hustle." She tapped the folder meaningfully. "I don't care if they don't have a fancy degree. I don't care if they've never worn a suit. If they show up, if they work hard, if they treat people right, they have a place here." The team exchanged excited glances. Serena smiled, but it wasn't the polished corporate smile of boardroom deals. It was a real smile, one born from years of being told she wasn't enough and proving every single person wrong. "We're not just building a better bank," she said. "We're building a better future." Later that afternoon, Serena sat down for a press conference. Reporters packed the small media room inside the bank headquarters. Cameras flashed, microphones jostled for space. Everyone wanted to hear the story firsthand. The black woman who bought the bank where she had been humiliated. The CEO who fired her abuser in front of the world. But Serena wasn't there for revenge. She wasn't there to gloat. She stood at the podium, calm and poised, her voice carrying through the room like a steady drumbeat. "I didn't buy this bank to make a statement," she said. "I bought it because I believe in second chances. I believe in dignity. I believe that every person, no matter how they look, where they come from, or what struggles they've faced, deserves an opportunity to succeed." The reporters scribbled furiously, nodding. "We're changing how we hire. We're changing how we serve." "And yes," she said, her eyes sparkling with fire, "we're changing what success looks like." A reporter stood up, microphone trembling slightly in her hand. "Ms. Williams," she asked, "what message do you hope this sends to other businesses across the country?" Serena smiled, slow and powerful. "The message is simple," she said. "Treat people right. Not because they might be your boss someday, but because it's the right thing to do. Always." The room exploded into applause, not polite, not forced, but thunderous, roaring. Serena stepped away from the podium, letting the applause wash over her. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. She knew there would be resistance. She knew that real change was messy, uncomfortable, painful. But she also knew it was worth it. Every step, every fight, every scar. And as she walked out of that press conference, head held high, Serena felt something she hadn't felt in a long, long time. Hope. Real, bone-deep hope. Because this was just the beginning, and the future was wide open. 1 year passed. 12 months. 52 weeks. 365 days. But for Serena, it felt like a lifetime. Or maybe the beginning of a new one. In that time, the bank had transformed. It wasn't just a facelift. It wasn't just new paint or shinier marble floors. It was deeper, stronger, real. The hiring initiative Serena had launched exploded with success. The bank now had employees who once lived in shelters, former foster kids, single mothers, veterans struggling to find their place, dreamers who had been turned away at every door until Serena opened one for them. Customer satisfaction ratings had skyrocketed. Loan approvals for small businesses in underserved neighborhoods had tripled. Profits were up, but more importantly, so was trust. The community had noticed, the city had noticed, the whole country had noticed. Serena drove herself to the branch that morning. No fanfare, no cameras, no entourage. Just her, in a simple gray coat, her hair pulled back, sunglasses shielding her eyes. She parked across the street and sat for a moment, just watching. Watching the life she had breathed back into a place that had once been cold and crumbling. Inside the glass doors, she could see them, the employees laughing together. A teller helping an elderly man sign his forms with patience and a smile. A young intern greeting customers with a confident handshake. Serena smiled. She stepped out of the car and crossed the street. As she pulled open the doors, a wave of warm air and even warmer energy washed over her. "Good morning," Emily called from behind the counter, now wearing the badge of branch manager proudly displayed. Serena laughed softly. "Good morning," she replied. Employees recognized her instantly, but they didn't stiffen in fear the way they had a year ago. They smiled, they waved, because she wasn't just their boss, she was their champion. Emily hurried over, beaming, "Ms. Williams," she said breathlessly. "It's so good to see you. We weren't expecting you today." Serena took off her sunglasses, her eyes sparkling. "I wanted to see it for myself," she said. "No speeches, no meetings, just this." She gestured, around, at the life, the laughter, the heart of the bank. Emily nodded, her voice thick with emotion. "You changed everything," she said. Serena shook her head, smiling. "No," she said gently. "We changed everything. Together." Emily blinked back tears. "Would you like a tour?" she asked eagerly. Serena laughed. "I'd love one." They walked together, through the branch. Everywhere Serena looked, she saw the fingerprints of change. The training posters about empathy and inclusion. The plaques celebrating Employee of the Month winners, names that once would have been overlooked. One wall was dedicated entirely to success stories, photos of small businesses launched with the bank's help, a bakery run by a single mother, a tutoring center founded by a former homeless teen, a tech startup created by two immigrants who once couldn't get a loan anywhere else. Each photo had a caption beneath it. "Dreams funded here." Serena stopped in front of the wall, swallowing hard, against the lump rising in her throat. This was why she fought. Not for headlines, not for applause, but for this, for lives changed, for hope reignited. Emily stood beside her, silent, letting her take it all in. After a long moment, Serena turned to her. "Thank you," she said simply. Emily shook her head, smiling through tears. "No, Ms. Williams. Thank you." Serena took one last look around the branch. The future was brighter than it had ever been, and she knew, deep in her bones, that this was just the beginning. Because when you plant seeds of dignity, of opportunity, of respect, you don't just grow a better business, you grow a better world. And Serena Williams was just getting started. For a while, everything felt perfect. The bank was thriving, employees were happy, customers were loyal. The future looked brighter than ever. But life has a way of testing even the strongest foundations. Just when you think you've weathered the worst of the storms, another cloud forms on the horizon, and Serena saw it coming. Before anyone else did. It started subtly. A few anonymous complaints filed against her leadership. Whispers about her being too radical, too emotional, too focused on charity instead of profit. At first, Serena brushed it off. Growing pains, she thought. Resistance from old mindsets that hadn't quite caught up yet. But then came the emails, threatening, ugly, cowardly. "You're ruining the bank," one said. "You're letting those people in," another sneered. The words stung. Not because they were true, but because they revealed a truth Serena already knew. Change terrifies people, and when people are scared, they lash out. One afternoon, Serena sat alone in her office, staring at the printed copies of the anonymous emails spread out across her mahogany desk. The sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the floor. She leaned back in her chair, closed her eyes for a moment, and breathed. Deep. Slow. Steady. Marcus knocked lightly on the door before stepping inside. "You saw them?" he asked quietly. Serena opened her eyes and nodded. "Yeah," she said. "I saw." Marcus hesitated. "There's more," he admitted. "There's a group of senior shareholders. They're planning a meeting. They want to challenge your leadership." Serena smiled faintly, not with amusement, but with grim understanding. Of course they were, because when you shake the ground hard enough, the old walls start to crumble. And some people would do anything to rebuild them exactly the way they were before. "Let them meet," Serena said, her voice calm but steely. "I have nothing to hide." Marcus nodded, relief flashing across his face. He trusted her. They all did. Because Serena didn't just lead from the top, she led from the front. Still, after Marcus left, Serena sat alone for a long time. The memories crept back. The little girl who had been told she wasn't good enough. The teenager who had been laughed out of scholarship interviews. The young woman who had once been rejected by 27 banks when trying to get her first business loan. She had fought too hard, too long, to turn back now. Serena stood up and walked to the window. From her office, she could see the street below, bustling with life. People walking, laughing, hurrying to jobs, appointments, dreams. This city, this community, this future, they were bigger than the hatred, bigger than the fear. And so was she. Serena turned away from the window, her heart steady, her mind sharp. If they wanted a fight, they would get one. But it wouldn't be the fight they expected. Serena wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for every underdog who dared to dream. Every overlooked soul who dared to stand tall. Every voice that had been silenced too long. The meeting with the shareholders was set for Friday. 3 days away. 3 days to prepare. 3 days to decide not just the future of the bank, but the future of everything Serena had built, and she would be ready. Because storms didn't scare Serena Williams. They made her stronger. Friday came like a drumbeat in the distance, steady, inevitable. The sun rose over the city in a blaze of orange and gold, but inside Serena's heart, there was only steel. She dressed with care that morning, a crisp white blouse, a sharp black suit, simple pearl earrings. Nothing flashy, nothing loud, just power. Silent, undeniable. At exactly 9 a.m., Serena walked into the boardroom. The room was already packed. Shareholders, executives, high-ranking managers, most of them old enough to remember when the bank served only the privileged few. They barely masked their hostility. Their disdain. Their fear. They didn't want change. They wanted the old world back, where power looked like them, sounded like them, protected only them. Serena knew exactly what she was walking into, and she smiled. Because you can't fear a fire when you were forged inside one. At the head of the long, polished table sat Harold Whitmore, the lead shareholder. A man who had made his fortune decades ago and never once questioned whether it was luck or merit. In his mind, it had to be merit. Because if it was luck, it meant someone like Serena could someday surpass him, and that terrified him more than anything. He cleared his throat loudly. "Ms. Williams," he began, his voice dripping with false politeness. "We've called this special meeting because there are concerns." Serena nodded calmly. "I understand," she said. Harold smiled thinly. "Concerns that under your leadership the bank has become too focused on social issues, that profitability may be sacrificed for charity, that standards have been lowered." Around the table, several men and women nodded, murmuring agreement. Serena stood at the end of the table, her hands resting lightly on the wood, not gripping, not clenching, just steady, strong. She let the silence stretch for a long, uncomfortable moment. Let them squirm. Let them underestimate her. One last time, then she spoke. And the room changed. "You're right," she said clearly. Head snapped up, eyes widened. "You're absolutely right," she continued, walking slowly along the table. Her voice low but carrying. "I have focused on social issues. Because banking, real banking, isn't just about hoarding wealth. It's about empowering communities. It's about creating opportunities. It's about building futures." She stopped and looked Harold directly in the eye. "And you're also right about another thing," she said, a small, dangerous smile playing on her lips. "I lowered the standards." Gasps echoed around the room. Whispers. Shock. Serena let it hang there for a moment longer before continuing. "I lowered the standard for arrogance, for discrimination, for exclusion." Her voice sharpened, slicing through the air. "I raised the standard for kindness, for empathy, for hard work, for integrity." She took a slow breath, allowing her words to soak into the stiff, starched suits around her. "And as a result," she said, voice rising with quiet triumph, "we have seen a 45% increase in customer loyalty, a 30% increase in small business loans repaid successfully, a 60% increase in employee retention." She pulled out a small, neat stack of papers and dropped them onto the table with a satisfying thud. All audited, all verified, all proof that a better world and a better business are not mutually exclusive. The room was dead silent. Harold's face had gone an alarming shade of purple. Serena smiled again. Not mocking, not cruel, just certain. "You called this meeting to question my leadership," she said, "and now you've got your answer." She turned, addressing the entire room now. "If anyone here believes that dignity, respect, and opportunity are incompatible with success, feel free to tender your resignation today." She paused. No one moved, not a single person, because in their hearts, even the ones who resented her the most, knew she was right. Slowly, Serena gathered the papers back into her folder. She looked at Harold one last time, her gaze cool and unshakable. "This bank doesn't belong to the past anymore," she said softly. "It belongs to the future." And with that, she walked out of the boardroom, head high, heart steady, victory ringing in her every step. Behind her, the boardroom sat frozen, left, in the wake of a woman who had stood before the fire and come out burning brighter than ever. The news spread like wildfire. Within hours of the board meeting, headlines blazed across TV screens, news sites, and social media. Black woman CEO shatters old guard, leads bank into new era. Serena Williams, redefining power, one decision at a time. Justice served, future secured. But Serena wasn't thinking about headlines. She wasn't thinking about accolades. She was thinking about the little girl she used to be. The one sitting by a broken window with a candle, dreaming about a world that seemed so far away. A world where she was seen, where she was heard, where she was enough. And now, she had built that world. Not just for herself, but for countless others. 1 week later, Serena stood at the podium again, but this time it wasn't inside a sleek boardroom. It was in the heart of the city, on the steps of a community center that the bank had helped save from foreclosure. Hundreds gathered. Employees, customers, families, students, dreamers, people of every background, every color, every walk of life, all standing together. The sun was setting behind her, casting a golden glow across the sea of faces. There was laughter. There were tears. There was hope, thick and tangible in the evening air. Serena stepped forward, no notes in her hand, no prepared speech. Just her heart. She looked out over the crowd and began. "I was told once," she said, voice steady, "that power looks a certain way. That leadership wears a certain skin. That success speaks with a certain accent. She shook her head slowly. They were wrong. The crowd leaned in, every word landing like a heartbeat. Power isn't about domination. It's about lifting others up. Leadership isn't about titles. It's about service. Success isn't about the size of your bank account. It's about the size of your heart. She paused, letting the quiet settle over the crowd like a warm blanket. Every child who has ever been told they weren't enough. Every dreamer who has ever been laughed at. Every soul who has ever been judged by their skin, or their clothes, or their zip code. Her voice grew stronger, richer. You are not invisible. You are not forgotten. You are not alone. A hush fell over the crowd. A reverent, breathless silence. Serena smiled, her eyes glistening. You are powerful. You are worthy. You are the future. She stepped back slightly, lifting her face to the sky for a moment, feeling the warmth of the sun, the wind, the pulse of something bigger than herself. Then she spoke the final words. And together, she said, we are unstoppable. The crowd erupted into cheers, a thunderous roar that shook the very ground beneath their feet. Children were lifted onto shoulders. Strangers hugged each other. Tears streamed down faces, young and old. Serena stood there, soaking it in. Not as a CEO, not as a headline, but as a woman who had fought the battles no one saw and won the victories that would echo for generations. She knew there would be more storms, more fights, more walls to break down. But she wasn't afraid, because she knew who she was. She knew what she stood for. And she knew one simple, unshakable truth. The future belongs to those who dare to change it. And Serena Williams was just getting started.